Hey everyone, welcome to Rick's 1/35 scale models. My name is Rick. Today I'm going to be taking this Meng Merkava Mk4 with the trophy defense system and I'm going to be painting it. Now what I'm looking for here is the sun washed kind of a look in the paint, and what you'll end up seeing is, depending on the wear points and different areas of the body, you'll see shadows and different darker areas and lighter areas, and I want to simulate that effect. What I did do is, after I built the kit, I added the MIG anti-slip on it in some of the areas. That would be this tan colored material, and that just makes it look a little more realistic, because they don't just put a film down like a lot of the European countries do. They actually do a more of a realistic material of sand and things like that to create their anti-skid. So it's not always uniform and it looks a little different. I'm going to be, first of all, painting it in a black primer using the Mr. Hobby black, and then from there I'm going to be highlighting the areas that I want lighter with Mr. Hobby's dark yellow. Then after this is all dried, I'm going to take and lightly paint the IDF paint on the whole vehicle, making sure that I don't just hit it real heavy and paint over all the details I've created. The idea here is to lightly paint it, and then the dark color comes through and the light color comes through, and between everything, once you see it painted, you'll get the effect I'm looking for. Now I haven't put all the materials on. The sight isn't in here yet because I got to paint the inside black and then install it, and then I haven't put any of the glass on the model itself yet either, because I don't want to paint over it. But that's kind of the idea we're going for here, so let's get started.
So the first stage would be doing the primer black. Now I do a liberal coat over the whole model, doing the top, bottom sides, making sure I especially get in all the little cracks and crevices. This is very important in the final results, because when you do the spray, sometimes you'll miss points, and this will actually add depth to your model. The next stage will be highlighting your lighter points. Now, what you're looking for here is the big flat areas is where you want to do this. Now, as I said, I use the yellowish color here because that works best, I felt, with the color of the main model, but you can use whites, oranges, reds, whatever effect you're looking for. It's something to kind of play around with. You'd be surprised with the neat effects you can do and how the colors affect and create depth in your finished result. From there we start the actual painting of the model. Now the most important part here is to, first of all, don't water your paint down a lot. Keep it fairly thick and do really light coats. Slowly but surely building paint coverage, and as you do this you'll get the depth, but if you go too fast, you'll overpaint it and then lose the effect. You can always come back after the paint dries and add more paint, but once you overpaint it, you're going to lose the effect and would have to start over. What I do is I come at it from multiple different angles. This gives you the depth. The other thing you can do is paint it more from the side, and that will cause your cracks and crevices to keep the black primer more, and that will also add depth and effects. Especially with a lot of the models, the panels aren't as deep as they really are in the real vehicle. Well, this will kind of simulate that and, as I said, create more depth in the finished result. From there I added a gloss coat and then started the decal installation. Now one of the things I always do with my decals are, like I said, you do the gloss coat so they stick good, but then you want to use a product that actually softens the decal, and that causes it to penetrate and form more to the actual surface and look more realistic as painted versus a decal stuck on. Once the decals have dried, you can always come back and add more of your softener to create more of a look. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 on a real rough surface, but definitely take your time. You'll always get good results if you take your time to let it penetrate and soften. From there I finished up some of the extra details. I had already done adding the tracks and all that. I've covered doing tracks in prior videos, but here I'm just covering up some of the areas that I need to finish before I start the weathering process. One of the other things I noticed after completing the model is they have these canvas bags behind the crew exit area. So what I did is I just took a sponge and used tin foil, glued it down to simulate the sides and look. Once you see the finished result, you'll understand what I'm going for here. But I just let those sit down and dry while I started the weathering process with the oils. Also, I noticed they had these straps holding down the ammo cans on the top. So what I did is I just took my tape, cut it thin, and then used CA glue to glue the sides, and the actual tape stuck to the top. Once that completely dries, it was easy to come back and paint it white with a little bit of the yellow bleeding through to create that effect of it something being semi-dirty and used. Now I'm putting in the canvas bags I created, the bottom part. I primed them and painted them, and then I'm sliding them in. What'll affect here is they look like they're actually hanging versus just being shoving tinfoil or some other product in there. The only thing I need to do now is do the top, so I got more tinfoil, laid it on a towel and kind of indented the pattern into it, and then laid it out, cut it to fit, and then primed and painted these also. Real simple, and then once they were completed I glued them with CA glue again. Neat effect. The only thing to be cautious with the tinfoil is you can scratch the paint off. It's really hard to make it look, but I think that gives a better canvas look than some of the thicker materials that don't look realistic. I'm starting the fun process of using the oils. Now these are fairly watered down washes, and then using the pin wash type technique and then hitting the crevices. Then I come back with a dry brush and lightly brush it around to kind of pull it off and create the effect I'm looking for. Just a slow process of building it up. A lot of times once it dries it gets lighter, so you sometimes have to hit it a second or third time. But I don't care how much a vehicle is clean, you're always going to see some of this. It makes it look a lot more realistic. The color I'm using here is a kind of a yellowish tan, kind of a blend of multiple colors. I think it works best for this model. Other models you may want to use whites or browns. It just depends on the field that the vehicle you're simulating is operated in, and using the appropriate types of dust and grime effect. Lastly, before the oil has completely dried, what I'm going to do is take a light powder and kind of dust it, and that'll create a little depth with my areas that I've hit the oils on. It'll stick there more than the rest of the vehicle, and definitely adds a more realistic look, I think. So I wanted to do the antennas but have them tied down. Now what they do is they have a strap that with a little loop on the end that attaches and wraps around the antenna, and then when they pull it down tight, they tie the other end to something on the vehicle to have it bent down so they don't damage the antennas. What I did is I used guitar string. I've done a video on that technique, but this time I took and I unwrapped it from both directions, and then right in the area that I wanted that little tie area to be, I left it there, pulled it down, and that created the effect that I've seen on the especially the IDF, the way they tie the antenna down. Once this was all done, I hit it with a liberal coat of a dull clear. That seals everything up, but also takes all the shiny areas off, especially from the oils you'll get. Definitely a necessary process. The only thing about this to remember is if you've added all your clear plastic, you're going to overspray it. What you can do on that once it dries is use a light wood dowel or something, and it kind of scrapes off. If you're careful, you won't scratch anything. But the acrylic doesn't really stick very well, so it's something you can recover from if you make that mistake. Lastly, I'm adding all my clear plastic. Unfortunately, I had my focus wrong. I apologize for that. But I'm just basically sticking those on. Now I'm using a tester's glue that's designed for clear plastic that won't fog them. And then I just did a little bit of touch-up painting, and the model was basically complete. Okay, so now we're looking at the final product and how it turned out. You can see here, you kind of get the idea of the two-tone look, the different details I added, the road wheels, the tracks, in a fairly weathered effect look. The vehicle itself doesn't have really any damage to it. I wasn't looking for that look. Well-maintained vehicle, something that's been pressure washed. With the flat military grade painting and that they do, it's almost impossible to get all the grime and all that off because it gets down into the pores of the flat, but you still get an idea of them cleaning it up, kind of what it would look like. Also looking at the stowage tarps in the back, the bags I've created, all the different elements. I haven't attached the antennas yet. I've got this ready to go. I'm going to be mailing this model to someone, so that's why these aren't done yet. But you kind of get a look, an idea of what it'll look like once it's complete. All the equipment they have on the top, the fire extinguisher, the different elements and aspects of the model. Kind of going over the overall results. Also adding the exhaust port here, the normal diesel, you would get grime and oiliness of it here. But that's the overall model. I'm real pleased with the results. I love the effect. Anyway, questions and comments always welcome. Please subscribe. Please like, comments and questions. I love them. You know, please ask away. Tell me what I did right or wrong. Get me on Facebook. You can email me. Always looking forward to the communications with different people. They may notice something I didn't notice. More videos coming soon. Everyone take care and happy modeling. Bye-bye.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.